Hello and a very warm welcome to today's show. My name is Magela Pillay and we are talking today about values, virtues, ethics and morality. Today it is my honor to have in the studio with me Sister Denise, who's been practicing Raja Yoga meditation for over 40 years. Sister Denise, a very warm welcome to today's show.
Thank you.
The format of today's show is what is known as Socratic dialogue, and for those of you who would like to know further as to what that means, Socratic dialogue is the philosophical method of systematic doubt and questioning of another to elicit clear expression of a truth supposed to be knowable by all rational human beings. We will be questioning some of the world's conventional views on conduct and words. We will analyze and dialogue these topics in order to gain more insight as to why humanity has become what it has become, and also to uncover new foundations that formulate our value system. Sister Denise, a very, very warm welcome to today's show.
Thank you.
And today, ladies and gentlemen, the topic that we wish to take up is loss of value. Sister Denise, what is of great concern to me is that humanity has chosen to only define themselves. The currency by which most people on the planet define themselves is money. Why has that become the case, and should it be the case?
The actual money that we have, the banknotes, they're paper. They're not backed by gold, they're not backed by anything real. And so it's telling us that the values that we're working with are ephemeral, they are not real. Anytime anything can happen and it all disappears like so much confetti on New Year's Day. Why has this happened? Probably because people have bought into the sort of materialistic paradigm. They bought into the idea of debt, the idea of, live now, pay later, the idea that money represents something that it actually doesn't represent. So I think people have bought into a lie, and they have, as a result, become very deluded. And one fine day, it's all going to, as it were, go up in smoke, and then there will be, this kind of crash into the reality that our base, our foundation, just is straw. So it's actually very dangerous. But the thing is, the propaganda for it is so sophisticated, so widespread, and it's been going on for so long that people have been lulled into this feeling of complacency, of acceptance. In a way, people know this, but they're not paying attention to what they know. They're not seeing the results. They're not seeing the implications. And I think part of what we are doing here is challenging these realities and saying, wait a minute, let's just wake up here.
When did this loss occur? Because there's something in me that refuses to believe that humanity was always like that.
I think it's very hard to say, but definitely I believe there's a bit of a cut-off point around the time of the Second World War. Maybe a little bit before that. Maybe if we go back to the First World War, we can really see a change of era And by the Second World War, or after the Second World War, you know, that is really when the American dream was born, and when I remember seeing a little documentary in which the United States president spoke to the president of Russia saying, look what we've got, you know, we've got fridge, we've got car, we've got all of these things. We've got heaven. You people don't have, you know, this is the difference. And I think it's really from there that the advertising industry developed, and the other consumer durables all started to be the thing, and people got intoxicated by it.
You used a word earlier by saying that it's extremely dangerous to be in that frame of mind where you measure yourself like that. Most people who are successful don't see it that way. They see what they have acquired, what they've worked hard to acquire, and plan to have a lot more by way of acquisition before they die. And so they become comfortable with all of the things that they've gained. And to them, that is value, that is success. But you define it differently, do you not?
Yes, I do. And when people define themselves in this way, you see, as you were speaking, I'm remembering that something like 1% of the human race owns something in the region of 80 or 90% of the world's wealth. So the other 99% of humanity is classified as without value. And I think that the way people who have look at the have-nots is that, well, you have not because you don't deserve it, or because you couldn't put it together, you're not capable. They really don't see the deception, the misappropriation, and so on, that has happened, you know, since the time of colonialism, you know. And what we have with the countries who have gained independence from colonialism, but they have become economic slaves in a way, and that is easier to hide, but maybe it's easier to tell the story to people and make them believe a certain way, but it's just not real. And when something goes along for a long period of time that really isn't real, why it's dangerous is because it, you know, the bubble bursts and then there's nothing.
What makes a human being valuable?
I think the value of a person is determined by the quality of their virtues, the quality of their intelligence, their wisdom, the way that they work with people, taking everything into consideration, looking at things in long term, operating on the basis of the highest human potential, the highest human qualities, who want to make themselves the best quality people in terms of virtues, in terms of their humanity, in terms of their generosity. This, I think, is what makes a person valuable.
All of those things that you just described, is it internal or is it external?
Well, clearly it's internal, and whatever is going on internally is going to be reflected in terms of atmosphere and vibration. A person who is wealthy internally isn't dependent on external show, so they are likely to be relatively frugal, but not overly so. They will be very humble, but not obsequious. They will have beautiful things around them, but not extravagant. You know, there's a balance there, which means that their outside reflects who they are, but it doesn't try and pretend something that they're not.
Mm. You described a person being balanced. Does that mean most of humanity now has lost the sense of personal equilibrium?
I think just as the condition of the environment is suffering because it's lost balance, and I think the environment also reflects the state of humanity. So people are very much unbalanced, and that's because, in my opinion, of the materialist paradigm. You see, a person who is balanced, they're balanced in terms of their inner life and their outer life. The inner and the outer correspond with each other. They add to each other. They reflect each other. They're integrated with each other. A person who's unbalanced, they don't know who they are. They're one thing with somebody, something totally different somewhere else. The inside, the outside don't match. The person is also mentally a little fragile, you see. So there isn't that sturdiness, that resilience that you will find in a person who has really balanced all the different parts, the components of their lives.
Sister Denise, a shockingly large percent of population have an awareness of what you just said, but yet really don't do anything about it. There's a feeling of external success, okay, which if anyone really puts their mind to it, they can gain, but inside there's a feeling of emptiness. It's almost like you're a hollow inside, a shadow of the person that you were supposed to be. And it's an extremely painful thing for a lot of what I would call middle class achievers, where you come to a point in your life where you tick off all the boxes, where you've got the spouse of your dreams, the children of your dreams, the career of your dreams, the car, the house, etc. And yet you have all of it, and there's a vacuum. How can one fill that vacuum? That feeling is there for a reason, isn't it? One cannot ignore it. How does one fill in that void?
Well, the first thing to do is you have to come to terms with it. It's difficult for people because you have to accept and admit that you've failed. And people usually think that failure is like really, really bad, but actually failure is good because it enables you to reset yourself.
May I interrupt you? When you say failed, you mean you've achieved externally, but you failed yourself as a person internally.
Yeah, because you tick off all the boxes, and what's supposed to happen as a result of ticking the boxes doesn't happen. You're not happy. You don't have a substantial relationship with your wife, husband, children, colleagues. It's all very superficial, and it doesn't have meaning. And I think ultimately a person craves for meaning in life. And meaning in life is attained when you do things that really correspond with who you are, and that you are, you know, a contributor. The world today doesn't talk much about being a contributor. It's all about being a consumer.
Is it possible for somebody to be spiritually successful and externally successful? Is it either or? You find many people who are spiritual, who have very little by way of success in the external world, because it's not important to them. Then you get the opposite. What is your definition of an balanced adult who has value?
When I think of the people I know who I consider really spiritual, all of them are very successful externally. They may not be successful externally in terms of having large sums of money in their pockets or their bank accounts, but they command organizations, or they command the respect of a lot of people. They are having influence, they can get things done, they can travel, they can do whatever they want to do, but they don't have to have things to represent that. Their influence is over the hearts and minds of people, and they can get things done just like that. That, to me, is a very good aspect of success.
Okay.
I think the people who say they are spiritual, but they can't get anything to happen, then I would say, well, maybe we need to have a look at what's the meaning of spiritual.
Yeah. How would you define it?
Well, probably, a person who's really spiritual is somebody who keeps the physical and the spiritual in balance, who gives a lot of intention to their consciousness, to their conscience, and they use matter in a very responsible and creative way, so that their interaction with themselves, with people, with matter, with God, all of it is working very well, and that actually reflects that they've understood the laws that govern human interaction with matter, with people, and with the divine.
Are you saying that if somebody spends that level of time introspecting, their value will be regained? Will they feel it? Is it possible to have value and not feel it and not know it? Is that possible?
I think that if you have value, you will feel it, but in the process of acquiring it, you may still be influenced by some ideas that say, you should be more of a renunciate, you should be, not really claiming all of these things that are coming to you. It's good that when things come to you, you reinvest them in your project, your work, your aims, and not just be a consumer, because then it just fritters away. So I think this reinvesting is very important, but you will feel your value. You will know that you are someone. You might not put a word on it, but you will feel this inner power.
The process of regaining lost value is a lifelong journey, is it not? Did you follow a systematic route in order to regain your own lost value? Did you take advice from somebody? Is there books that you read? Does one go to the self-help section of a bookshop and say, okay, I want to add value? Do you learn this from something, someone?
Well, I think everyone...
What are the tools of your, if you're an architect of the inner self, what are the tools that you use to rebuild? I cannot help but admire the Greek background. How do you keep those pillars? What are the pillars of your value system that make you feel as an individual you have value? And by you, I don't mean Denise Lawrence specifically, but a human being.
I think there isn't such a thing as a general human being. We're all very individual, and there are lots of kind of categories of people. And I think the first thing you want to do is to try to feel yourself from the inside, because you want to get a sense of who you are, both in terms of your potential and in terms of, what has happened to you over long period of time. The soul is affected by the ravages of time, and the idea of Raj Yoga that we practice here is that we do return to an original state of absolute fullness and fulfillment. But whether you're drained, whether you're damaged, whether you're contaminated, whatever that is, that you have to decide for yourself by really feeling yourself intuitively. And then you see, okay, there may be some emptiness which has to be filled. There may be some poisoning that has to be healed and cleaned. There may be some structural damage that may have to be re-engineered. You know, you really have to see yourself like as almost like a professional who rebuilds the self. Now, the architect of the world, there is an expression in India for the architect of the world, Vishwakarma, which is an interesting expression because Vishwa means the world and Karma means action. So in a way, you are a world yourself. And there is also this idea that the person, the human being, is a macrocosm, and the world around you is the microcosm. So whatever it is that you do for yourself, to yourself, is reflected in changes in the outside world. Most people, they look at the outside world and they are reflecting that. It really should be the other way around. You make yourself and the outside world reflects who you are. Now, as you work on yourself, you begin to get in touch with the reality of who you are as an individual. You stop generalizing, you stop using expressions like someone like this person, because there isn't anything like that. And you really start to try to feel what is my vibration, my frequency, my color, I really try and make it very, very individual, and then come into the fullness of that, because we want to try to be true to ourself. So even if the self is damaged, corroded or whatnot, but there'll be a trace of the original self that you want to touch base with, and from there you rebuild yourself by amplifying those qualities. I talked earlier about the fundamental qualities of purity, peace, power, love and bliss. These are your basic foundation stones, and on the top of that you make your beautiful mandala of your qualities, your virtues, but it has to be maintained by your personal powers, and then you have that solidity.
Sister Denise, thus far you've spoke to us about how one gains, but I've seen many individuals who I can only describe as an unplugged sink, where there's further loss occurring as you watch them walk by, and I can include myself in this scenario. How does one prevent further loss? Because if every individual looks at themselves for only a second, there are certain aspects of our behavior that needs urgent attention. So if somebody really wants to prevent further loss of their own value, what would your advice be to such a person?
You have to be very conscious of your thoughts.
Is that where it all starts?
That's where it all starts, in the thoughts. So we have this practice in Raj Yoga. Do not have any waste thoughts. A waste thought means a thought that is not filled with meaning. A waste thought is, you don't have to think that. Bad thoughts, you know what that would be, but a lot of people, they permit waste thoughts, and the waste thoughts gradually go towards bad thoughts, and your thought is a power which should not be wasted in unnecessary thinking about trivial things or slight doubts or criticism. So, you know, you need to set standards for your thinking and hold yourself to it.
Does that automatically imply that you'd have to set standards for your words, your behavior, and your relationships?
Well, everything starts in the thought. So if you set standards for your thought, it's going to come through in your words, your actions, your relationships, certainly. Because if you do an action which is substandard according to your criteria for your thought, your conscience will immediately alert you to the fact that you're being hypocritical.
Sister Denise, we have viewers watching today's show who have experienced a lot of personal trauma, and because of that they've internalized the trauma and spend their lives in an attempt to recover from their pain, and in the process lost more of their value. How would you engage with such a person, and what advice would you give to them so that they can come back from that and regain their own value?
Well, I think when people are hurt, they don't try and recover from that, but they try and bury it. They try and hide from it more than try and recover from it, because it doesn't look good to be hurt. If someone is hurt and is visibly hurt, then they can elicit scorn from the general public, and they want to avoid that much more than they want to get better. And this is where the problem lies, that we hide, we cover, we bury, and we start to live on the surface. We create a kind of substitute self, which we can also call as an ego mask, and then operate from there, and then the real self gets completely neglected and denied. And so spiritual practice breaks down this ego mask and goes inside and says, okay, now we have some work to do, and we need to do this systematically and seriously, and not be put off by the fact that someone may not be generous, someone may be scornful, someone may really not understand what's going on at all, and that will be very painful, but we have to endure that pain.
How?
Through the development of spiritual power, and that's where meditation comes in. Because if you don't meditate, you won't accumulate power, and then when all of this work happens, that the deeply buried things start to come to the surface, if you don't have the power to manage that, it can bowl you over, and then you have to really hide.
Okay, we can go on and on listening to this fascinating subject of loss of value, but unfortunately we've come to the end of today's show. Sister Denise, thank you very much for a deeply insightful discussion. Sister Denise has shared her thoughts on loss of value, how to stop losing further value, and how not to measure yourself using false terms. I hope you enjoyed today's talk as much as I have, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care and goodbye.